Hi, Mike here. You're watching Yukon Scout Restoration. This video is about rocker assembly installation, plus tappet cover, intake manifold, water pump, and thermostat. This is not a how-to video. It's a how I do video. I hope you like it. Let's get to work. If you want to help, please subscribe to Yukon Scout Restoration. It's free. Mike Morrow, over and out. Because I've got a new camshaft, new lifters, a rebuilt rocker assembly, I also got new push rods. I didn't really need them, but everything may as well be new. And we'll all start off the same. This rocker assembly has 9 supports. Note the third from the end has a lubrication hole here. I'm pumping oil into the third support, which has the oil hole in it, which corresponds with the hole in the rocker shaft, because I want to see oil come out. There it is. It's coming out here. Okay, it's coming out here and here. So I'm going to plug those. Now it's coming out the 5th one. Coming out the 6th one. These are my new push rods. I'm now installing the push rods in the block. I'm squirting melting engine assembly lube on the top of the lifters, the bottom end of the push rod. I also put engine assembly lube in the cup. These are cup and ball type push rods. Before installing the rocker assembly, it's important to have the engine in number 1 TDC compression. Otherwise, you could damage or bend some valve train components. Note that the oil gallery next to the third from the rear rocker support bolt must correspond with the oil gallery in the third from the rear rocker support on the shaft. Note the notch on each end of the rocker shaft. It is important that these notches face up because the lubrication holes are only drilled on one side of the shaft. If you install it with the notch down, it will not lubricate the rocker shaft through the rocker support. Just have to check that all the push rods are correctly in place, top and bottom. I'm applying thread sealant to the rocker assembly mounting bolts. This is important because some of the bolts pass through water jackets. Wipe them clean and apply the thread sealant. A liberal amount of thread sealant. So I've just very gently snugged these bolts gradually down, making sure all the push rods are in position. All right. Now I'm turning the push rods, and they all turn nicely. So I'm going to turn the engine 1 revolution. I'm back where I was, where I started. Rocker shaft torque, 14 to 16 foot-pounds. So I think I'll just turn the engine 1 revolution. So everything's turning smoothly. Just squirt a little bit more oil. I've applied a very thin coating of Permatex high temperature former gasket to the valve cover. Here's the valve cover ready to install. Note that there's only place there's silicone is between the gasket and the valve cover. This is the way it should be. We'll now install the valve cover. I'm using NGK XR5 V-Power spark plugs. I will loosely install them in the engine now before something falls in one of the holes. I've got these spark plugs to 28 thou. and I put 1 drop of oil on the threads. I'm just putting them in the engine loosely so that the engine is closed up and nothing can fall inside it. This is the tappet cover and gasket. I would really like to do a nice job of gluing this gasket to the cover so that I can easily remove and replace the cover anytime I want to. So I'm going to use Permatex Red RTV high temp gasket maker and just put very thin film and let it get tacky before I install the gasket. So I'll just leave that for a while to dry. I'm now ready to install the Pushrod cover. Takes 11 5/16 bolts with flat washers, not lock washers. And each of these bolts should get 1 drop of oil. The engine side of the cork is dry. I always put the engine side of the cork dry. And I don't fully tighten the bolts. I just snug them until the silicone has set right up. The next day, I can tighten them a little bit more. If you don't have a dry cork gasket, when you tighten the bolts up, it squishes out, moves sideways. Very undesirable. Before installing the intake manifold, I've installed the crankcase vent. That's the point down. It actually goes back up to a T-fitting on the intake manifold. I will now install the intake manifold. Note the 3 tangs on the gasket. They go up into slots on the valve cover gasket. You just gently put the intake in place. Use a screwdriver. So I'm starting the 2 outer long bolts because they're the easy ones to get at. I put the thread sealer on these intake bolts because some of them may go into water jackets. Better safe than sorry. Just put the sealer on there and we're good. The 4 short bolts go 2 here and 2 here. The 2 medium length bolts go in the middle and the 2 longer bolts go on the outside. Also note that the 2 middle bolts are brass. I have no idea why or if there's even a reason, but they are brass. I go back and put the sealer on the long bolts. So I'm just going to run them in. It's just till they're snug, starting in the middle and working my way out. I'm not going to get a super accurate torque using a flex socket. The torque to these is 40 to 45. So I'll start at 20. Then I'll jump right up to 40. This is 40 foot-pounds. You get to a point where the flex socket won't turn in this tight space, so I just take it off, move it a couple of clicks, and then we're okay again. 40. 40. And 1. So I've installed the filler pipe. I already painted the back side of it before I ran out of paint. And the dipstick tube goes on the same bolt right here. So the dipstick tube just needs a little tap. The brass hammer until the holes line up. Which is right there. Dip the bolt in oil. So it's just a 3/8 bolt with a lock washer.
Tighten that up gently. I already painted the back side of the water pump housing. I will now install the water pump housing, putting a little bit of oil on each bolt. Install this bolt here first, and 2 more bolts down here. These water pump housing bolts don't get lock washers. Just snug them up and then I'll torque them. Before I do that, I'm going to check this pipe, see how I'm going to get that pipe in there. Well, that should be okay. Torque 25 to 30. This water pipe goes up to the cylinder head. I just put a little Vaseline on the O-ring. Get that to go in there, and it went in there. This little retaining clip holds the pipe onto the cylinder head. Let's make sure in full contact. Perfect. I'm applying Permatex Aviation Forma gasket to the water pump gasket. I also apply thread sealer to the water pump bowls. This top water pump bowl has a little bracket that goes on it for the heater hose to pass through. Just going to snug 2 bolts. Check to make sure it's turning freely. This points straight up. This heater hose will come out of here, pass through here, go around here to the heater, which is on the fender on the passenger side of the vehicle. 14 to 16 foot-pounds. Just check them again. One more time. That's turning nice and freely. Pretty good. I've installed the thermostat housing temporarily until I get the thermostat. And I'm just putting a little bit of Permatex Forma gasket onto these 2 hose barbs, which will connect to heater hoses. So I can now tighten the 2 of these with a 7/8 wrench. One more hole to fill on this engine. It's the distributor hole. But first I'm going to have a look at the distributor. One problem with this distributor is the clip is broken. One side of this clip is broken. I will now install the thermostat. There are 2 gaskets. One goes under the base, between the base and the intake manifold, and the other one goes on top, like that. And then the thermostat housing goes on top of that. And the thermostat goes this way up, and it's even written on the thermostat to rad, so you can't go wrong. So I'm just going to put Permatex Aviation Forma gasket on these 2 gaskets. The first thermostat gasket goes on the intake manifold, like so. After that, the base, the thermostat, the right way up, the second gasket. I'm now applying thread sealer to the balls, a liberal amount of thread sealer. It's important to keep pressure on the thermostat housing in case the thermostat moves out of position. Just gently tightening it up and looking to make sure everything is flush. I'm torquing the thermostat to 28 foot-pounds. I'm using Duplicolor red engine paint. I'm putting a new copper washer on the drain plug.
In conclusion, the valve train went together very well, plus all the other components. The engine is looking good. My next video will be engine 6, final assembly. I hope you like it. If you want to help, please subscribe to Yukon Scout Restoration. It's free. Mike Morrow, over and out.